Everyone, I'm Jessica Eaton, and it's good to be back with you guys here in week 6. I'm just going to jump right into this. So, my experience with standardized tests. When I went to school in California, and we had to take something called the STAR test twice a year, and starting in the third grade all the way up to the eighth grade. And this tests your math skills, reading comprehension, writing, and then once you get into high school, ninth graders take it, and then 11th graders take it as well. However, it adds a science section to it. And so I took that twice a year, every year of school that we had to take it. And then when I was in high school, I also took a lot of AP tests. So I have some experience there. And in college, when or in California, when you're applying to college, they really look for the SAT scores. However, the college that I chose uh, accepted ACT scores as well. So I took both the SAT and the ACT. I'd heard from someone that the ACT was easier than the SAT, and so I just wanted to make sure that I covered all my bases and that I took the test that was best for me personally. So let's jump into grading and assessment. The way that I see grading and evaluation is I see grading as the actual score that a student gets, or the actual letter grade that a student gets. So you get a 23 out of a 30, or you get a 5 out of 10. That would be your grade. And then the evaluation is the assignment that is used to obtain that grade. So maybe that would be a formal test, or maybe it would be a recitation of a passage of poetry, or just some other activity that could be graded. So I know our book kind of differs from that a little bit. That's just the way that I see grading and evaluation, the way that I keep them separated in my mind. When I was in high school and college, I think the types of evaluations that I experienced the most were descriptive and summative. We took a lot of pre-tests, and a lot of classes would require us to write kind of a initial formal essay just to see where our writing skills were, and then the pre-tests were usually on what we were going to cover in the class. So they just kind of wanted to know where we were with our writing skills, where we were with our knowledge, and then my professors and teachers would base their teaching off of the information that they gained from those. And then summative, I feel like a majority of my classes in college hinged on this final project, or this final essay, or this final unit test. And it was that way in high school too, actually. And so these summative assessments really could make or break your grade. And then finally, how does evaluation in English class differ from other subjects such as math, science, and social studies? I would say that evaluation in math, science, and social studies is cut and dry. In math, generally, you're going to get a test that has you working out problems, addition problems, subtraction, things like that. And also, those answers are never going to be subjective. Those answers are always going to be objective. 2 plus 2 is always going to be 4. 2 times 10 is always going to be 20. So there's not really any arguing that. Whereas in English, there are so many different ways to evaluate a student's learning. You could have them write an essay arguing for what they believe the theme of this book is saying, or how this book relates to the historical context or of the novel, or how it applies to their own life even. Or you could have them do a summative project. You could have them maybe make a poster board, or even make a presentation, or perhaps they're acting something out. And so there are just a lot of different ways to evaluate something in English, and it's all going to be objective. Not objective, it's all going to be subjective. And so we could sit and banter and talk about what this theme in this novel means to me, what it means to you. We can sit and discuss how figurative language is used throughout the novel. And the wonderful thing is that we don't have to agree at the end of the day, because literature is just so subjective, and it's really just the way that you interpret it, and people from different backgrounds are going to interpret it differently, or just see things through a different lens. And so we can always be learning from each other as well. Let's move on. As far as seeing these Bloom's taxonomy being applied to evaluation, I actually really loved this because I feel like I know Bloom's taxonomy, I know the various steps, but to actually put it into action is kind of difficult. I feel like I get stuck at the knowledge and the comprehension and then the application, and then I struggle to take it any further. I guess the analysis too. We do a lot of analysis in English, but to actually see someone who has done these things, write them so clearly, and to provide questioning verbs and different types of questions and different types of activities really just helps it to put into perspective for me. And the same for just looking at Gardner's multiple intelligences. I feel like in English class it's pretty easy to hit all of the intelligences, but it's nice to just see some tangible activities that can be used and manipulated to however I need them to work in my own classroom. And then finally, this teaching activity 13.1. This is something that I actually do with my 9th graders already. I'd like to implement it into a lot of my other classes. It's just, I feel like there's so much content that we need to get through that it's hard to just spend a whole day reading and journaling. But with my 9th graders, I generally will flip-flop the individual work and the assignment here. For example, this last week, we read a story on how someone was hurt by someone else, but they didn't really understand why the other person had done it. And so person A was really bitter towards person B, but at the end, person A finally sees it from the perspective of person B, and they're able to come back together and to reunite their friendship. And so I had students start off with a prompt of if they've ever been hurt by someone in their life and they didn't understand it, but then eventually they did understand it, and then how that changed them and how they saw that, how it changed how they saw that perspective or that situation. And then we read the story. Sometimes we read it out loud, sometimes we just read it silently. It just depends on how long the story is. And then I generally will do a think, pair, share sort of deal with them. I'll have them with a partner just discuss what they wrote in their prompt, how it relates to the story, any new insights that they might have had, and then I'll have them come together as a whole group and discuss it. And so I feel like this teaching activity really just validated what I'm doing. It's nice to see it in text, in a textbook, and then to also just give me another idea of how to do it, not having to do the prompt first, but also reading first. So yeah, that's kind of what I got from this week, and I am looking forward to hearing what you guys learned and your guys' experiences with grading and assessment.